Thanks, Anita.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, Shrima.
Hello, sir.
Last day पछि देखा पर्यो त यार तिमी त
हजुर
लास्ट डे पछि देखा पर्यो त भने
एन्क्लिक्स को लागि प्रिपेयर गरिरहेको थिएँ नि त सर त्यही भएर
almost a year I guess, right?
हजुर
It has been almost a year.
अलमोस्ट अ इयर सर
है
भयो 1 इयर भइसक्यो होला नि
right?
हो श्रीमा नै हो सर
Okay. Let's wait till 4-5 this will see continue.
हजुर हजुर के भन्नु भएको
4-5 सम्म पुग्नु भनेको सबैले
ए
Good afternoon, Devi.
Good afternoon, sir.
Link थिएन त त्यहाँ मैले पठाइदिएको थिएँ जस्तो लाग्थ्यो
पढ्नु भएको छ
let's start. Right? So, maybe. So previously we talked about intro ko part or or some kiki topic or some. We talked about our framework. So framework ko part kiki or suban. We talked about it. Then after we were devising about kun kun hisaple mo task 1 ko kura garde the. So task 1 ko phase we talked about framework ko kiki korsu. Then after we talked about framework ma saying what type of data we are dealing with, data ko bare ma kura garyौं. We also dealt with कुन चाहिँ tense ma बसेर कुरा गर्नुपर्छ. We also dealt about with categories. So I guess you guys have sent me assignments पठाउनु भएको छ. That was fine. Okay? Thank you for it. So categories ma कसरी गर्ने भन्ने हिसाबले चाहिँ. So that's our framework part. In case of introduction, okay, so in case of introduction, what you did was introduction ko phase ma say there was something like you need to have source. That's what it is. So, and you also need to have caption. So what it is about, you know, it's about this specific. You also need to have certain kind of division, which is kind of optional, right? So optional, it's fine. So how is division divided into it? Data mentioned about name it. Today we'll be talking about categories. How would we explaining things around inside the categories? So for example, categories are like so explaining about somebody. Let's just open another thing. Stop or something. These were the things that we talked previously. Assessment criteria, so those were the things. So today we'll be talking about the keywords. So it's D4. It's happening. So IELTS could say D4. So in case of categories about mirror format now, how would I be doing my report is something like intro. So mirror intro for a source, mirror intro for a caption, mirror intro for a division. Fine. Then after I'll go to my body part. So body part is kind of the largest part of your report writing. So body part, what we have devised till now is we have divided the categories. Fine. So while categories must divide maybe category number 1 hola. So category number 1 k hola. This specific category number 2 k hola. And this which will be writing something over here, right? We haven't gone to analysis part. So what do you mean by body part? So if in case you have to talk about what do you mean by body part? So in case of body part, body is something that is usually body is where you do data representation. Now, be very specific about this. Like, what do you mean by data representation? What data is body represent? I won't be representing my data in my analysis, or I won't be representing my data in introduction. Body part data representation that should be a rule, because I do not want to confuse the readers. कसरी confuse गर्न सक्छु, confusion नगर्न सकेसम्म म confuse गर्दिन मेरो readersहरुलाई भन्नु छ. So that's the body representation. Now body will still consist at least 70 to 80% of your data, right? So 70 to 80% of your whole report is consisted by your body part, right? So 70 to 80% of people can. So this is the place where you will be showing your grammatical skills. So grammar, this is the place where you'll be showing your lexical skills and everything. So lexical skills are in case of your intro part, you'll only be showing your TR. टास्क रेस्पोन्सिबिलिटी मात्र देखाउने हो CC को part, your grammatical, your lexical, your coherence and cohesion, everything is to be shown in your body part. You know? So you need to be really careful how would you show, eh? Now, so these all things are to be done in your body part. Okay, fine. So now, what do you mean by body part? The body. So we have devised certain things. Before writing a report, what we try to do is we have tried to devise category. So category के होला, at least you need to have two category. So you category भित्र चाहिँ म कसरी लेख्छु त भन्नेको. So there are different things. के कसरी जाने, के गरी जाने, category भित्र कसरी जाने भन्ने. We will devise some format. जस्तै कस्तो हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि if we have devised two categories, for example, so category 1 र category 2 भनेर गर्यो. Fine. Now, in case of fixed in time data, right? So suppose you are dealing with fixed in time data. In case of change over time, it's quite easy, right? So fixed in time data मा चाहिँ कस्तो हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि, okay, fine. Sangeeta, can you tell me what type of verbs would we be using in fixed in time? Actually, okay, higher than, lower than. Now, so these are the terms that we maximum, minimum, higher, lower, what you could have said. But now we are kind of telling the readers get used to this one. Suppose there are different terms. Category 1 you would lead, for example, I went from, for example, there are different terms. There are different ways that you can have. For example, they go from maximum and maximum they go to ascending, descending order, they go to minimum. Last minimum, fine. So maximum saying you, this is something like rank wise. You need to be using rank as well. This is the first rank, second rank, rank wise. Okay, that's fine as well. They write maximum you, however, minimum pani you, line, right? So maximum or minimum, extremes. So these two are extremes, subtle are extremes. This pachi balla gaera others ko kura garcha. This is also fine. So maximum or minimum jada hai. Some take some irrational things as well. That is also fine. Minimum bata and maximum period jada hai pani okay. Now, whichever form that you take, it's fine. Kasari lekhchau timarko kura ho haina. Kasari form pani lekhchau. One thing what you need to understand is if you have used a specific form in category 1, make sure that you use the same form in case of your category 2 as well. So that's something that would not make readers confusing. Okay? Confuse say for example, in category 1, what you have did is just say maximum or minimum ekechoti likhyo. Suppose extremes are ekechoti likhyo, maximum minimum likhyo. Then you went to others. Oh, whenever you're explaining the data representation of category 2 and you went on any maximum but any minimum say last ma likhyo pani अब readers are you writer saying okay fine, this writer is writing maximum, the extremes first and then going to the others. But when you change the paragraph or reader change the paragraph, if they see now there is a problem. Okay, so whenever you are doing this, make sure that you use the same format. So category 2 ma pani tapaihरुले के गर्नु पर्यो भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ so category 2 ma pani what you need to do is भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ category 2 ma pani what you need to do is if in case this is followed over here, यहाँ पनि maximum र minimum पहिला गएर त्यसपछि you need to go all this. but make sure that you are not using the same kind of words. Say for maximum, minimum, but maximum, maximum. So that would uh, have very less marks in case of your uh, lexical resource cookies, redundancy of words and ideas cookies. So data flow, how is your data flow? So more data flow you need to decide. So, and make sure that your data flow in category 1 and category 2 is kind of same, almost same. But in case of fixed in time, it's usually, sorry, in case of change over time, suppose data type cost the server, change over time server is. Now, this data is usually go with time, dependent over time. So what you can do is usually if in case change over times habani, you should always flow your data according to the time. Time that should always be forward flowing, right? So change over time forward flowing. Suppose you took one thing, okay, actually, just say just say for example, Italy ko exports, for example, fine. So Italy ko exports what you can do is Italy ko exports maybe 1998 maybe 2010 some of exports, sorry, for example. You can skip data, right? Suppose forward flowing one, Harry, you skip the data, say for example 1998 बाट 2004 because that's the trend, upward going trend, sorry. For example 1998 you go 2004, maybe you go to 2010. So that's forward flowing, okay? एकबाट अर्को एकबाट अर्को एकबाट अर्को गइराछ. But if you do अलिकति absurd तरिकाले, for example, what you did was 1998 बाट you went to 2004 and you again came back to the 2002 data again. Now that's not forward flow. This should not be done in your report writing. Readers might get confused. किनभने यता रिडिङ गर्नेहरु को हुनुहुन्छ पहिला? Okay, Sangeeta. Okay, fine. Reading गर्दाखेरि do you remember whenever you are doing reading कस्तो हुन्छ नि कहिले काहीँ डेट्सहरु आउँदाखेरि जस्तै 1911 भनेर भनेछ भने यो भन्दा माथि नै हुन्छ के 19 भन्दा 11 भन्दा माथिको डेटाहरु के. इफ इन केस मैले 1911 एक ठाउँमा देखेँ भने 1911 को भन्दा जस्तै अब 1900 को डेटा या 1902 को डेटा भनेको 1911 भन्दा माथि नै हुन्छ के. अनि 1911 को पछिको डेटा भनेको चाहिँ 2010 को डेटा चाहियो भने I will be searching below this. Do you remember, Kailgi?
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So one thing what you need to have is saying you कुराहरु चाहिँ maintain गर्नु पर्यो in your report writing as well. They never talk about हुन्छ नि actually forward गएर फेरि back आउने कुरा चाहिँ नगर. Maybe what you can do is Italy को exports को कुरा गर्यो and then you went 1998 2004 2010 or अनि त्यसपछि maybe अब Germany को कुरा गर्नु पर्यो. You can do the same thing के 1998 maybe अब 2006 को कुरा गर्यो होला त्यसपछि 2012 को कुरा, but it should always be forward flowing. Now if in case यो दुईटा एकैचोटी भन्नु परेछ भने what you could do is you might compare as well. कतै न कतै maybe Italy को र Germany को 1998 मा यस्तो थियो हैन respectively, or maybe and this with जाँदै गर्दाखेरि you can compare the things out there as well. So one thing what you need to understand is fix in time ko if in case data flow गर्नु पर्यो भने, if you need to do fix in time ko data flow गर्नु पर्यो भने you need to use the same kind of data flow, maximum liyo minimum liyo त्यसपछि others liyo भने second category मा पनि you should be doing maximum minimum र others, or you chose descending or ascending order, you need to be choosing descending or ascending order in case of your another category as well. But in case of change over time, what you need to do is the first thing that you need to do is the time should always be forward flowing. So that's one theory that you can have, right? I'll put this aside. Okay. Okay, so that's one thing. Oh, whenever you're explaining things, right? How detailedly can you explain the things, right? So, भन्दाखेरि कसरी भन्ने? I'll show you one example. Example let's talk about the things now. Now, whenever you're telling something to your readers, our readers like भन्दाखेरि मैले कसरी भन्ने त मेरो अब ल slum down छ है माथि छ तल छ या माथि गइरहेछ तल गएछ maximum छ minimum छ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ so one thing that we need to understand is we have talked about uh, हाम्रो tax sorry we have talked about tax responsibility, right? So tax responsibility or T, tax achievement, right? That's for part two. Tax achievement. We have talked about CC, that's coherence and cohesion, which is easily done by separating our paragraphs. Now we are talking about lexical resource. So in case of lexical resource, there are various things that you need to consider. So one thing that you need to consider is the first thing that you need, the use of punctuation. How you use the punctuation does really matter in case of your report, right? Not only in report, it is kind of very important in case of your essay writing as well. So punctuation use you need to show that I can use the range of punctuation. Range use so punctuation that are used in IELTS writing tasks, one is the period, the full stop, right? I guess you know how to use the period. There is another thing, comma. This has the extensive use. This is the most used punctuation after the period. Okay? Your period comma is most used, right? And you could use maybe a semicolon, right? Semicolon or use it's fine. You could be using columns at times, but you need to know how to use things, okay? Columns. Especially, you could be using parentheses, brackets, parentheses are used especially, you could be using hyphens, m dash, n dash, sana sana kura. Now, if you show extensive use of these punctuations, these will have very good impression on your reader or your examiner, mainly. So you part of it. You cannot be using two signals, vocabulary signals, that's question mark and exclamation mark. You duita kura use garna chai paien, right? Exclamation mark or question mark use garna paien. Baki now, after paying 23,000, if you are giving a computer delivered test, or 21,000 if you are giving a sorry, 23,000 for people based test, and computer delivered if you're paying 21,500 or 23,000, you are going to show your examiner your writing to the examiner just for one day. Okay? Okay? So what my suggestion is that make sure, if in case you are going to give this for just one time, make sure that you use these punctuations at least once, if in case you want to score 7 or plus. एकचोटि चाहिँ use गर्नु पर्यो, not only in part 1, not only in part 2, both मा एकचोटि चाहिँ use गर्नु पर्यो. मलाई फुल स्टप युज गर्न आउँछ पनि देखाउनु पर्यो, मलाई कमा युज गर्न आउँछ पनि देखाउनु पर्यो, मलाई सेमिकोलन युज गर्न आउँछ पनि देखाउनु. Everything should be done over. So one thing, I cannot teach you each and every use, eh? You आफैले उ गर्दाखेरि पनि. So one thing, one site that you can go is, there is one site called the punctuationguide.com, right? म यो साइट ठ्याक्क फाइबरमा पोस्ट गरिदिन्छु, सबैजना एकचोटि बसेर हेर्न चाहिँ हेरौँ ल. The punctuation guide, what you can have over is question mark or exclamation point पाएन, period I guess you know how to use, right? Period. Commas कसरी use गर्दो रहेछ त? There are different ways के कसरी commas use गर्ने, JRINC use गर्दाखेरि कसरी गर्ने. There are a lot of things. There are rules के गरी use गर्न मिल्छ, के गरी use गर्न मिल्दैन. There are a lot of things. त्यसपछि semicolon कस्तो कस्तो ठाउँमा use गर्ने त? हेर्ने है. एटलिस्ट एकचोटि चाहिँ युज गर्ने. कलनहरू प्यारेन्थेसिसहरू कसरी युज गर्ने, स्ल्यास युज गर्न सकिन्छ. एपोस्ट्रोफी खासै युज गरिन्न, कहिलेकाहीँ युज गर्दाखेरि जस्तो इट्स गर्दाखेरि युज गरिन्छ होइन, त्यस्तै हिसाबले गरिन्छ. हाइफन इन ड्यास एम ड्यासहरू कसरी युज, गो थ्रु दिस वेबसाइट, आई सेन्ट यु इन दिस है. सो कसरी युज गर्ने. सो वान थिङ द्याट म्याटर्स इज पङ्क्चुएसन. And it really affects your writing sense as well. So use of punctuation is one of the most important things that you can have in your lexical resource, right? Another thing, the sentence structure. Now how you are writing things, right? Okay, we'll talk a bit about your grammatical skills either. Fine. Ravina, can you tell me what's a noun? Noun manage.
Noun is the word that represents person, place, animal, or thing.
Okay, that's the word that represents the person, place, or anything. Usually, even in case we talk in Nepali, say, Kira kuko answer din it's now. Fine. Just the kita, Robina, a kuto, Robina, kita, laptop. And if in case the answer Kira kuko answer din that's something like now. Fine. Adjective.
That explains the quality.
Quality of what?
Quality of noun.
Okay, that explains the quality of noun. हामीले भन्दाखेरि विशेषण भन्छ राइट हो नेपालीमा हैन. So that's something like noun कस्तो त भन्ने कुरा दियो भने चाहिँ that's something like adjective. कस्तो त noun हैन, कस्तो maybe कस्तो त, maybe अब रबिना कस्तो त, maybe beautiful, that could be one thing. So beautiful maybe भनौँ न, this is something like adjective, and Rabina could be noun. Fine. So one thing what you need to devise is that कस्तो हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ nounलाई define गर्नु पर्यो क्या. You should not be just seeing sales हैन, it's increasing या increase can be seen भन्दाखेरि यति मात्र भनेर हुँदैन क्या. So कस्तो खालीको increase त, कस्तो खालीको decrease त भन्ने कुरा. You need to define things. Just for example, whenever you are writing things in writing talks to as well, just think door matra bhayo, and that's something like noun. Okay? So door matra bhayo, it could be anything. Okay? But if I wrote anything like just a red wooden door, if in case I have written door matra, there is a kind of image of door matra. Okay? Now that image consists of a color, and that image consists the type of material it is made of. So red wooden door. You java euda kasto huncha, and this adjective, you particular adjective like ke garyo ta bhandakari chai it has defined the color as well as the type of material that it is made of. You simple door ko lagi. Now whenever you are writing things, you can do a lot of things with noun and adjective. Make sure that anything you write, maybe noun cha bhane adjective chai linu paryo bhanne कुरा. Srijana, can you please turn on your mic? Srijana?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. What do you mean by verb?
Verb means something like kriya types. Nepali bhanda चाहिँ kriya भन्छ.
Okay. Something that you have done, right?
Done, yeah.
Okay. Maybe we are studying right now, so study is verb, and maybe eat, write. These are kind of verbs. Something should be done over. Fly, cry, everything is done. So verb can be categorized into 5 different parts: V1, V2, V3, V4, V5. And so V1 and V5 are usually written for the present tense. V2 and V3 is usually done for the past and the participles. V4 is usually happening or was happening things, something like that. So these are the terms, right? V1 or V2. You know about things. What do you mean by adverb?
Action जस्ता
Can you please give one example of that?
Get closer. Example. ठ्याक्क चाहिँ हैन action.
What you call this in Nepal? Kriya भने जस्तै.
क्रिया विशेषण भनिन्छ.
Okay, fine. Kriya Visheshan. Right? Nice one. Oh, Kriya Visheshan. So this is something like adjective for verb. Okay. Just the noun को लागि adjective बस्दै noun लाई define गर्ने adjective भयो. Say verb लाई define गर्ने चाहिँ कस्तो adverb. Adjective for verb. So that's short form for that. Adjective of verb. Okay. So eat कस्तो त hungrily होला के शायद. हैन? So hungrily होला. किनकि eat कसरी त cry कसरी त loudly होला के for example. Fine. So you need to define the verbs as well. So these things एउटा कुरा कस्तो नि मेरो noun को अगाडि adjective लाग्ने र मेरो verb को पछाडि adverb लाग्ने कुरा is very important in context of my writing task 1. I'll show you some examples, right? So मैले explain गर्दा data, whenever I'm explaining the data, कसरी गर्छु त भन्ने. Fine. If I come over here, okay, fine. In case of lexical resource, these are things. So how do you improve your lexical resource? Now, there are certain things, okay? This is something like there are a lot of things that you can do. Climb one, so you know. This is something like it's something like climb. So this is like climb. You can't just see the climb matra bhanera bhayo के. How did it climb the भन्ने कुरा. So it may be climb gradually होला कि. हैन. So there are words for decreased. You should not be always writing चाहिँ यस्तै खालीको हुन्छ decreased मात्र. Slumped कस्तो त slumped gradually or slumped dramatically होला कि. Slumped drastically हुन्छ कि. Level of drop कसरी हुन्छ dropped slightly हो कि declined slightly. Sharp, increase sharply or dramatically. Now you need to define the things as just to show your grammatical average or lexical resource. Okay, कसरी गर्ने त के गर्ने त भन्ने. So you need to have these things as well. Okay? कसरी गर्ने त भन्ने. Now there are certain things, you know. So you went about verb, noun, के हो त भन्ने. Now that's something like the sentence structure to कुरा गरेको थियौं हामीले अघि है. Just delete this part. Okay, fine. So we talked about sentence structure previously, right? So In case of sentence structure, when you are talking about lexical resource को बारेमा कुरा गरिराख्दाखेरि चाहिँ okay, fine. So if we're talking about lexical resource, so lexical resource को बारेमा कुरा गरिराख्दाखेरि चाहिँ के गर्नु पर्यो? You need to be very considerate about sentence structure. Now, suppose एउटा कुनै data लिऊ. Let's have one data है एउटा कुनै. Okay, there are things like this also. I'll send you this thing. Decrease like कस्तो भन्छ, steadiness like कस्तो भन्छ, gradual decrease भनेको कस्तो हुन्छ, rapid decrease, rapid increase, rapid changes, gradual increase मात्र भन्दाखेरि कस्तो हुन्छ. There are certain things. Okay, how can just a rapid change like के भन्दा हुन्छ, dramatically, rapidly, sharply, hurriedly, adverb form, adjective form, dramatic increase, rapid increase के हिसाब. Okay, I'll just have it. Have this over here. One question. Okay, this is one type of question. Fine. Okay. So this is something like number of tourists visiting a Caribbean island from 2010 to 2017. Christina. Oh. Christina, can you please turn on your mic? Christina. Srijana? Or Shrima, okay. Shrima. Okay, fine, Shrima.
Yes, sir.
Okay, welcome back. Okay, fine. What type of data is this? Change over time, fix in time, if you do remember.
Change over time.
Okay, that's change over time. So you would be using increase, decrease, and everything. So we should be writing this in
past tense.
Past tense. So if you have to categorize, how would you categorize this? There's something like visitors staying on cruise ships, visitors staying on island, and that's something like
total.
Maybe you will be saying visitors staying on cruise ships would be one thing, right? So maybe cruise ships could be one category.
1, 2, 3.
3 categories. 2, or maybe visitors staying on island. Island mein basne एउटा category wala. And category 3 maybe you can be writing about the total. So that's fine. Okay, so that's fine.
Yes.
So मैले यसरी. So data flow would be कसरी जान्छ? Change over time. According to
2010 देखि gradually increase
भएको हिसाबले. So my data would be forward flowing, time अनुसार forward flowing. But I'll talk about 2010 पहिला, त्यसपछि गएर 2000. Now, whenever you're explaining things, right, it could be quite confusing as well. So मैले data हाल्नु पर्यो भने कसरी हाल्नु? I cannot be explaining each of these points. के गाह्रो पर्छ के यसरी चाहिँ. Each of यो point पनि explain गर्यो, फेरि मैले के गरे भन्दा island को कुरामा पनि यो point पनि explain, हरेक pointहरु यसरी भए explain गर्यो, total गरे. This would be almost like 3-page report. Okay, एकदमै लामो हुने गर्छ so you need to know how to skip data now whenever you're talking about data what you need to do is now is a forward flowing हो भन्ने कुरा त मैले बुझिहालेँ so whenever you are representing a data what you need to understand is you need to talk about this particular data यो त भन्नै पर्यो किन यो किन भन्नै पर्यो श्रीमा
स्टार्टिङ पोइन्ट भयो कति हुन्छ
स्टार्टिङ
भन्ने
पोइन्ट
थाहा
के
हुँदैन
म कहाँबाट सुरु भएँ त भन्नै पर्यो क्या so this data is mandatory this data is also mandatory क्या last को data यो दुईटा पोइन्ट त एटलिस्ट भन्नु पर्यो suppose this line is not such fluctuating सीधा यस्तो गछ भने what you can still do is भन्दाखेरि यो डेटा छ यति बेला यति थियो ग्रेजुअली राइज भएर 2017 मा यति भयो भन्दाखेरि पनि ओके that's fine but there are some cases and whenever you are explaining data what my suggestion is भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ at least take 4 points है नत्र भए 3 दिँदाखेरि पनि ओके 4 points यो 4 points मा तिमीहरुको के हुन्छ फर्स्ट पोइन्ट त भइहाल्यो लास्ट पोइन्ट त भइहाल्यो these are 2 points इन मिडल को कुनै दुईटा पोइन्ट लियो के जहाँ सिग्निफिकेन्ट चेन्जेसहरु भछ मेबी कस्तो हुन्छ नि we call it peaks and draws भन्छ के सो के गर्नु पर्यो यो पोइन्ट पनि लिनु पर्यो यो पिक भएको पोइन्ट पनि लिनु पर्यो किन यो पोइन्ट पछि के हुन्छ एउटा ट्रेन्ड त तल गएको छ नि त सो दैट्स समथिङ लाइक तलपट्टि गएको छ सो त्यही भएर यो पोइन्ट पनि लिनु पर्यो यो पोइन्ट पनि लिनु पर्यो किन यो दैट्स समथिङ लाइक ट्रेन्ड हिसाबले त्यसपछि यो ट्रेन्ड पछि के भन्छ चेन्जेस भएको छ भने यो पोइन्ट पनि लिनु पर्यो भन्ने हिसाब सो these are the 4 points that you should be taking in case of your thing so in this case which points would maybe यो पोइन्ट लिनु पर्यो यो पोइन्ट र यो पोइन्ट त लिनै पर्यो which could be other two
So त्यो फिफ्थ वान त्यो कन्स्ट्यान्ट भएको छ नि फिफ्थ देखि
कन्स्ट्यान्ट भएको ठाउँमा
यहाँ चाहिँ ओके
हजुर
फाइन मेबी यहाँबाट सरल लाएर गर्दाखेरि पनि इट्स फाइन अब यो कुरा त ग्रेजुअली राइज भनेर थोरै राइज नत्र यो पोइन्ट लिँदाखेरि पनि इट्स फाइन है किनभने यहाँको राइजको क्याटेगोरी र यहाँको राइजको क्याटेगोरी हेज क्वाइट इन्क्रिज के कतै न कतै अलिअलि फास्ट इन्क्रिज भएको अर श्रीमाले भने जस्तो यो पोइन्टसम्म चाहिँ ग्रेजुअली इन्क्रिज भयो इट रिमेन कन्स्टेन्ट फर अ फलोइङ इयर त्यसपछि के भयो हाइली इन्क्रिज ड्रामेटिकली इन्क्रिज हाइली इन्क्रिज चाहिँ अनि हाइली इन्क्रिज चाहिँ अलिकति गाह्रै पर्यो है त्यस्तोमा चाहिँ ऱ्यापिडली भन्दाखेरि यतापट्टि छ नि टन्नै के छ भन्दाखेरि स्टिडी चेन्जलाई के भन्ने नाउ आई सेन्ड यु दिस बुक है एकचोटि मजाले बसेर हेर अनि कस्तो इन्क्रिजलाई कसरी भन्ने त भन्ने कुरा नाउ फाइन मेबी आई विल बी टेकिङ ल अघि नै भनेको जस्तै यहाँसम्म ग्रेजुअली इन्क्रिज भन्छ अनि त्यसपछि एकदमै ऱ्यापिडली इन्क्रिज भयो भन्ने हिसाबले कुरा गर्नु फाइन सो यो एउटा ट्रेन्ड भयो यो एउटा स्टेबिलिटी भयो त्यसपछि यो यता जान्छु भन्ने if you decide on this could finish it in you could finish it this in 3 lines okay that's fine very fine application of phone autos okay sorry for that so how would I will be doing maybe this अब एउटा कुरा चाहिँ के याद गर्नु पर्यो भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ there are two forms that I can have के adverb form र objective form in case of improving your lexical resource make sure that you are correcting your sentence structure so what do you mean by sentence structure त भन्दाखेरि suppose you explained in 2010, the number of visitors that cruised in the ships remained 1 million, was 1 million, which increased gradually till 2015, right? Increased gradually, for example, or which Okay, fine. Increased gradually till 2015, right? 2015 with the numbers almost like this is approximately 2.7 million. Fine. अब यसपछि मैले के गरेँ भन्दाखेरि the first sentence मा मैले के गरेँ भन्दाखेरि I used increased के थियो अरे gradually थियो के that was my verb. Hear me? This should be understood very clearly. So that was my verb. So what's this? What's this? Dobina के हो यो? Increase gradually भनेको increased के हो gradually के हो?
Increased is verb and gradually is adverb.
Okay, gradually is adverb. Now, so what do you mean by sentence structure? You need to have this change in sentence structure. Okay, सकेसम्म के गर्नु पर्यो भने I have used verb र adverb एकचोटि. So that was my first sentence. And after this, if I have to explain this constant र यतापट्टिको कुरा, do not be again using verb र adverb नै भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ that's what change of section. सकेसम्म verb. So then maybe the trend remained constant for a year and there was a अब के गर्नु पर्यो? There was
an increase. Okay.
steep,
Rise.
there was a steep climb or के भन्नु पर्यो के? Now this is something like steep climb चाहिँ कस्तो भयो भन्दाखेरि I have used verb र adverb एकचोटि. अर्को सेन्टेन्समा चाहिँ what I should be doing, I should be using noun र adjective के? So that's what sentence is. Usually यसरी पढ्दाखेरि के हुन्छ मलाई सजिलो हुने गर्छ के? Now that's what sentence change in sentence structure is भन्दाखेरि not having that monotonous structure के? मैले सधैँ he has सधैँ has plus b3 has plus b3 has plus b3 use गरे भने के हुन्छ त भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ that's certain like always monotonous के? So make sure that you're using various kind of sentence structures. कसरी use गर्ने? Same thing. If you change the paragraph, जस्तै अब यतापट्टि फेरि गएर visitors on the island गर्दाखेरि you can use the same thing. फेरि आयो. तर if you have different thing that has अनि एउटा कुरा के याद गरौँ भन्दाखेरि once you have used this increased वाला part छ नि. So for example, increased वाला एउटा verb use गरिसक्यो भने make sure that you are not using this same verb again in any part. कुनै पनि part. You need to have a lot of synonyms for this. Use synonyms, eh? सकेसम्म म word repeat गर्दिन because you're showing your skill for your synonyms. If you use the same thing, increased, जतिचोटि हुन्छ, suppose increase नै use गरेँ, your repeated words will be counted. Eh? This is the third thing that you need to understand about lexical resource. So that's something like first thing, how do you use your punctuation? Right? Second thing, the change in sentence structure. Third thing, the repetition of words. Right? Repetition of words. And the fourth thing that you need to understand, words to ideas that repeat going to apply. Now, the fourth thing you need to understand is how do you use linking words? Now, this is a different topic, very linking words. So that's something like using similarly or however, contrastingly. How do you use these things? कसरी use गर्छौ? And I really suggest that with the change of each sentence, you need to be using certain time of you. Okay? However, कसरी गर्ने? I'll show you a sample of same thing. Eh? यही कुराको sample मात्रै हुन्छ. So that's something like graph below shows the number of tourists visiting a particular Caribbean island. Number of tourists visiting Caribbean island. IELTS को band 8 को हेरौँ है त. That was from Cambridge 15. Okay. Fine. So this is the particular thing that we talked about. इसको writing task कसरी गरेछ त भन्ने कुरा हेरौँ है त. Now, first thing, let's check. पहिला एकचोटि चेक चाहिँ गरौँ डु नट गो थ्रु है यसरी चाहिँ सकेसम्म चाहिँ के गरेछ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ okay this must be my we are not talking about this overall right we'll go through other you bodies answer you ke गर्ने चाहिँ what is this about overall just don't go just go to the data type or data representation so this is something like line graph भनेको के भयो exactly line graph नै भनेको छ it has not said just chart हैन के हिसाबले पिक्चर के पनि भनेको छैन line graph is my source the line graph details make sure that you are yeah graph below shows भनेको छ make sure that you are changing that particular word that's showing something like synonym ko कुरा the number of tourists visiting a particular between that so what he has done is or he or she has done is the total number of tourists as well as where they stayed going to a given Caribbean island from 2010 to 2007 so this is what this is about what it is about so that's something like source which should be key theory rephrased now if you write the same thing you will get a 0 in your talks achievement now this is something like analysis we'll be doing this part tomorrow now let's go to the part यसमा धेरै उ चाहिँ गरे छैन है यसमा धेरै के गरे छैन भन्दा क्याटेगोरी डिवाइस कै गरे छैन so that will cut off the marks in हाम्रो के भन्छ cohesion so यो पार्टमा एकचोटि हेरौँ visitors residing on the island during the travels begin at the about 0.75 million about 5,000 above on those cruise ships from there this is a good resource the numbers for the former now what they have done is former र latter को पनि use गरेछ के you should be doing this है former what do you mean by former what do you mean by latter the numbers for the former climbed quickly so this is one term that you have used that's something like you keep by verb adverb to 500 million a full million higher than the latter at the same million this is a very good sense that they have used complex sentence banako ho bhanne kura a full million higher than so what you need to do is analysis pani सँगै गरेको भन्ने हिसाबले हेर्नु पर्यो के this is something like fixed in time को verb हो है तर fixed in time को verb हुँदा हुँदै पनि के गरेछ भन्दाखेरि यसले ठ्याक्क लाएर कमा दिएर punctuation को use गरेछ के now see the use of punctuations as well है over here त्यसपछि then those on islands were relatively steady another thing climb quickly relatively steady so that's something like climb quickly was verb adverb this was noun adjective noun sorry right? Until the end of the time surveyed while cruise passengers rose steadily fear here as a verb the former in the midway through the reaching a peak now reaching a peak is something like verb bottom and if it noun लिएर आछ के यसले verb र noun गर्दाखेरि in 2017 of 2 million भनेछ now this is something like a good writing okay? Changing the language structure as per the requirement here this is a very small thing to notice एकदमै सानो कुरा हो नोटिस गर्नको लागि चाहिँ but still it is a very important thing to have it for your lexical resource and this is very good lexical resource change in sentence structure reporting what you are right fine the progressive patterns for the visual something were reflected in something where started 1 million grew constantly something before plateauing if you do remember increase यहाँ actually use गरेछ कि increase sharply climb quickly relatively steady reaching a peak they have not used the single word twice okay दुईचोटी use गरे increase दुईचोटी use गरेकै छैन that's why it's a good write कतै न कतै now one thing what you need to do today is it's almost like 4:56 hours right so one thing what you need to do you need to write anything maybe screenshot this है यही कुरा स्क्रिनशट गर्दाखेरि पनि ओके के कुरा लेखौं है तर के गरी लेखौं भन्दाखेरि डेटा रिप्रेजेन्ट डु नट एनालाइज इट अहिले है स्क्रिनशट खिचे पनि हुन्छ एकचोटी खिचौं त The graph below shows the number of tourists visiting a particular screenshot. Everybody, please. Okay. I don't want anything. I need an intro. मजाको intro. त्यसपछि analysis चाहिएन. मलाई के गर्नु पर्यो भने data representation गर्नु पर्यो. So data representation category 1 को भित्र के लेख्छौं त म category 2 को भित्र के लेख्छौं. And whenever you're writing these things, make sure that you're considering lexical resource as well. Okay? म wordsहरु सकेसम्म repeat गर्दिन. म सकेसम्म एकचोटी noun, adjective र noun use गरिसकेपछि अर्कोचोटी I would be using verb and adverb, and you can go through this website as well. Right? I'll show you. I'll give कसरी जाने भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ vocabulary. This is something like vocabulary and writing tasks like grammar and vocabulary guide. I'll show you this. यो पनि यही छ. Go through this. मजाले यो साइटहरुमा चाहिँ यो सिकाइराख्न साध्यै हुँदैन फेरि यो. है, go through this. Grammatical range, accuracy of grammar कस्तो हुन्छ, describing tense के हुन्छ, there be adjective plus noun, there be adjective plus noun plus in noun phrase. So you can have one sentence as there was a gradual rise in price. Make sure that you mention the data. Data से mention गरेर possible adjectives के हुन सक्छ, gradual, moderate, sharp. Possible nouns के हुन सक्छ, possible verbs के हुन सक्छ, adverbs के हुन सक्छ. Describing increase and decrease. How can you describe things? How can you use the fractions? The oil price halved in less than a year. Making comparisons, there were few. I know overall more of the number. There are a lot of things. Summarizing tenses. Go through this website. This is exactly for your lexical resource only. So, question describe as beautifully as you can. Use as many punctuations as you can. Have that good combination of complex as well as simpler sentence. Then we'll be talking about overall analysis for you. That would be the last class for our writing task one. Fine. That's my class. Okay, fine. Bye bye, everyone.
So
Have a good day.
Bye, sir.
There was a